way back in the day, it actually gave me a headache, but I consider that a good thing. This is one of those puzzle games that's so intricate that it almost feels like your brain is having to grow new pathways in order to solve all the problems it presents to you. Along with having some great controls and some really complicated situations that it constantly throws you into, this one game created thousands of different memes, from the Stay Alive song to the cake is a lie. Even now, playing it again after all these years, I still can't help but realize that this is something that's truly extraordinary. Number 9. Grand Theft Auto Vice City. Selecting just one game from this amazing series was really difficult, but I'm specifically choosing GTA Vice City because it was so groundbreaking in a number of ways. The 80s setting, neon lights, and groundbreaking open world style was just something we hadn't seen before, and I still feel like it plays the best in modern times. You can buy this on PlayStation 4 right now, and recently I did. Returning to this town and causing even more chaos than I did originally makes me realize that this is something that definitely stands the test of time. The characters are still so silly, the mission's so great, and even though the aiming aged badly, I can still see all the parts of this game that play absolutely phenomenally. Number 8. Resident Evil 4. Survival horror as a genre has had a lot of ups and downs over the course of the years because it's a genre that's very hard to develop for. Keeping people feeling weak and afraid while also entertained is a delicate situation, but I feel like the Resident Evil games managed to do it in really unique styles. At launch, RE4 kind of confused me just because it was so different. It shifted the tone of this franchise into a different direction and made it more action-focused, but it still managed to be absolutely top-notch. Getting to fight huge giants and all sorts of weird zombie-like people who don't die with a single headshot. It challenged you to rethink how you picture this series and horror itself. Number 7. Witcher 3. Picture yourself climbing over a hill, tracking some sort of giant beast. Say it's a griffin, and it's very, very hungry. You've already seen several of its victims, and you know that just over this next ridge, it's time for the major fight. How do you prepare yourself? Do you use fire magic, or just your crossbow to keep its wings cut? Or do you just try and get your sword out and wait for him to be hungry enough to land so you can chop him up? Witcher 3 is very much about choosing your own way to play, and it just builds out a sense that this world is alive. Geralt of Rivia is trying to make his own path through this terrible place, and along the way, we learn about him, his struggle, and what it's like to be an outcast in a world where you are the strongest person alive. It really made me want to dive deeper into this universe and actually relate to each of the individual pieces of it. The people who are just trying to live and work, along with Witcher himself doing everything required just to try and survive. Number 6. Silent Hill 2. In the late 90s and early 2000s, there was a group of programmers who got in a lot of trouble over at Konami. They were considered the developers that were a little bit harder to work with, so what they did is, they put them all in a separate building from the rest of the team, a smaller building where they were supposed to just work on tiny games without anybody really watching them. These people ended up being called Team Silent, the creators of Silent Hill. I truly believe that their isolation and need to create an amazing product is what birthed the Silent Hill franchise. It's probably what helped feed into that sense of fear that every single moment of these games captures. Silent Hill 2 specifically, though, is so good because it really makes you feel like something is wrong. Deeply within this city, there is a problem that cannot be solved just by guns and violence. Some of the demons you face are actually deep inside your own soul, so trying to get out of Silent Hill is about more than just simply walking out. Number 5. BioShock. This game succeeds on so many different levels simultaneously. As a shooter, it has some really great combat. As a puzzle game, there are all sorts of little things you can interact with to try and test your wits. And as a story, it's so freaking complex and full of great twists that even the best writer is sure to be thrown for a loop. Every time I've beaten this game again, I've discovered some extra element to it that's just so finely made. From little environmental details that tell a little bit of an extra story, to finding one extra little audio log that shows me a little bit more of the darkness of the people who once lived here, before they all went insane and killed each other. BioShock created something we as gamers had never seen before, and it pushed us a little bit deeper into the madness of a good game. I still think that BioShock 4, or some sort of sequel that comes back to Rapture even for a moment, has the chance to be truly great just because this establishes such a dark, twisted, and amazingly good time. Number 4. Super Mario World. It's kind of funny to think about now, but when Nintendo announced that they were coming out with a new console in the mid-90s, people were actually a little bit upset originally. The NES was selling like hotcakes, so suddenly revealing that people are going to have to buy an all-new system in order to keep playing games, it was a little bit controversial. However, as soon as people laid their eyes on Super Mario World, all that was gone. They trusted that this machine was going to be the future, and as soon as you get the controller in your hand, it's easy to see why they thought that. Mario World is epic, and I use that word because it's just so vast in scope. With over 150 levels, secret paths, and multiple ways to beat some of the challenges in this game, Mario World constantly pushes you to try and check stuff twice. But on top of that, let's face it, it is just a freaking blast. Picking up a cape and flying as far as you can, or getting a fire flower and trying to use it on ghosts and it not being effective, or just climbing up a random rope and seeing where it leads you. Super Mario World is something you can go back through as many times as you want, whether by yourself or with friends, and it's still going to be a hilariously good experience. Number 3. The Last of Us. It's extremely hard to build a believable character, to make somebody who's fictional but seems like they're actually made of flesh and blood. Now, the reason I say that is because The Last of Us is a rare experience that manages to capture that, to make a set of heroes who seem very real. I mean, Ellie and Joel seem like people who actually could be walking around. Throughout the course of their journey in this game, we really see them face real struggles, both internally and externally. We see them fight with internal doubt as they wonder which path is the correct one to choose, and we see them fighting off zombies and all sorts of terrible situations. But on top of that, we see the trust between these characters grow. These are strangers thrown into an impossible situation and stuck trying to figure it out. By the end of it, it's very likely that during the course of this game, you will laugh at good jokes, cry at the really sorrowful moments, and feel like you've seen something that's never been done before. There is a real, genuine heart and soul to this game that it makes me feel like I've grown as a person just by playing it. Number 2. Final Fantasy IX. This entry may surprise some of you because, well, let's face it, it's not Final Fantasy VII. I've written in the past about how FF7 is my favorite game ever made, but I'm willing to take a step back and realize that it's probably not the pinnacle of the franchise. 9 manages to do several things better. The magic system is better thought out, the gear and upgrade system is a lot more fluid, and the world itself is darker than any other game in the franchise. It manages to make this horrible apocalyptic war somehow seem like a really deep, touching journey. We see these people trying to save the planet while at the same time not knowing why they have to do this. Along with those things, I feel like the fact that the art is so stylized really helps this age better than some of the other stuff in this series. You can go back through this right now on PlayStation 4 and it still seems like the same miraculous adventure it's always been, and some of the boss fights are still some of the greatest of any game ever. So I'm very happy to say that while this isn't necessarily my favorite FF game, I'm willing to admit that it's probably the very, very best. Number 1. The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Up until now, we've seen Link don the tunic to go on all sorts of adventures, from sailing the high seas in Wind Waker to just getting a hang glider and traveling across the lands of Hyrule in Breath of the Wild. However, going back to this one, I feel like it's still the one that stands out the most in my mind because it was the first in so many aspects. You are given free reign of the entire kingdom just to try and explore at your own pace. If you want to max out your heart containers, you can go around looking for secret paths in order to get all sorts of heart pieces and maximize just how many hits you can take. If you want, there's side areas that can be gone down to try and find extra weapons or stuff like a giant blade that can never be broken. Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time manages to make a game that's fun to play, extremely exciting with each new dungeon you reach, and genuinely has a sense of loss to it. Every time you're doing things in it, you can feel like you're actually trying to save a world that is currently beginning to rot. I like that they managed to make something that's so twisted and yet so beautiful at the same time. And for that reason, I award this my pick as the absolute best game I've ever played. Did the game you think is the absolute best not make the list? Got an idea for a future top 10? Leave it in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. I bet you might be wondering about that game I mentioned during the intro, MDK2. It stands for Murder, Death, Kill, and it's actually a really weird, well, it's a lot of things. It's a third-person shooter, it's a puzzle game, and it's a lot of fun. So open your mind and try something a little bit different when it comes to gaming this week. Oh, hi. I'm just working on the next video. If you want to see what it is, go ahead and click this button and you can subscribe. Also, if you click these video links, you can see my latest review and my latest top 10. Now I'm just going to sit here for a minute and wait for you to subscribe. Oh, I guess I could put on these giant glasses. I literally found these on a roller coaster.